Thanks for coming. My name is Purshotam. I'm a Oozie PMC member and a committer. I work for Yahoo Hadoop team. Today we will be discussing about recent development in Oozie. This talk is divided in two parts. First, we'll talk about some of the pipelines things and complex dependencies. And second part will be discussed by my friend Satish, who also works for Yahoo Hadoop team, and he is a Oozie contributor. The agenda of this talk will be, we'll start with Oozie at Yahoo, and then we'll talk about data pipelines. Are you guys able to hear me?
No. Maybe get it a bit closer.
Is that okay? Yeah. So agenda of this talk will be, we'll start at Oozie at Yahoo, and then we'll talk about data pipeline and complex dependencies. We'll move into Oozie unit testing framework. We're still working on it, and then we'll talk about Spark engine and then future work. Let's start at the beginning, like why Oozie? Oozie has a lot of advantages. To name few, it has out-of-box support for multiple actions type, like you can do Java, Cell, DCP, MapReduce. You can also do pipe with MapReduce and streaming. It has a support for Pig, Hive, and Spark action. It is highly scalable. It's highly available. It supports rolling upgrade. Oozie in HA is highly balanced, and we can integrate with Hue also. Let's look at the scale at Yahoo actually. Currently we have 13 clusters, and in all of the clusters we have Oozie deployed. In terms of product and users, we support 75 products. There are 2,000 plus projects, and there are 255 monthly users. If you look at the job statistics, we have around 90K workflow running daily. This is just for one cluster, which has 1 to 8 action, on average 4 action. We also support extreme use case where users submit 100 to 200 jobs per minute. In terms of coordinators, if you look at one cluster, this is just for one cluster, we have around more than 2K coordinator running. Those frequencies are 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly. And 25% are less than 15 minutes jobs. Most of the workflow run on the cluster are submitted from coordinator. We have more than 90 bundles running daily on one cluster. So we have 30 clusters, we can figure it out how much scale we support. Let's quickly move on to data pipeline and complex dependencies. To see how we'll give an example what all teams at Yahoo uses Oozie. In advertisement category, they use Oozie for ad exchange, ad latency, search advertisement. In content, they use it for content management, content optimization, content personalization. Flickr videos also use Oozie. In targeting, they use for audience targeting, keyword targeting, partner targeting, retargeting, and web targeting. In email, they use it for anti-spam detection, content, retargeting. In data intelligence category, they use it for research, dashboard and report, forecasting. In data management, it is used for audience pipeline. To give an example how Oozie can process pipeline, we have taken one of the example. The rectangle box is a bundle, is a Oozie bundle, and the dotted lines are input and output. In this pipeline, the input are click and view impression, and output are invoice details with some monitoring and reporting information. The core processing happens in the core bundle. It takes input from 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and hourly feeds, and it produces 5 minutes and hourly data. The 5 minutes goes to the invoice bundle, which generates invoice related information, which is used by billing and other things. It also generates hourly data, which is used by Ribbon Monitor, which produce monitoring metrics, which is feed into the monitoring system. We also have AWD bundle, which takes the hourly data produced by the core bundle, and it produces data which is used by the reporting system. We also have MDQ bundle, it pulls data from the MySQL and dump it to HDFS. That data is used by core bundle for processing. The MySQL contains the information about partners, those are used in invoice generation. They also have an archive bundle, which takes all the input feed and it runs daily and archive. And this is useful to save the namespace, and also, like if we have any issue, we can use it for reprocessing. Let's take a simple coordinator example. I know people who use Oozie, they know it, just to give an example. So the Oozie coordinator can be divided into data sets where you define your data, and then you have input events where you define your data instance, and then of course you have workflow which will run on those data. There are a few limitations of the Oozie coordinator. First, all data sets are required. Whatever you define in Oozie data sets has to be present for action to run. All instances are forced. So whatever data instance you have defined has to be there. So you can't do anything with that. You can't combine data from multiple providers. So you define data set A and data set B. There is no way to combine it. If you are working with a multiple provider, there is no way to set a priority among the data sets. Recently, we added support for complex dependencies. Oozie 1976 has more information. So basically, we have provided 3 operators, and, or, combine, along with attribute mean and weight. And using those in a nested and whatever operator, you can do you can solve multiple data pipeline use cases. Let's see how does the Oozie coordinator looks after input logic. So in the same way, there is no change to data sets, it remains same. There is no change to input events, it remains same. To enable complex dependency, what you have to do is that you just have to add input logic. In this case, it says or input 1 or input 2. Now let's use this and see how we can solve multiple pipeline use cases. So first, BCP. So like you want to do a BCP process. You want to have a primary data and secondary data, and you want to process whichever is available. So you can do it through OR operator. It says data or data set A and data set B. And it means that Oozie will start processing as soon as data A or data B, either of them is available. Partial processing. Sometimes your data is not guaranteed. So you can use mean in those scenarios. In this particular example, what does it mean is that start processing as soon as 4 or more data is available. Sometimes people might have a use case of optional and mandatory field. So I have a mandatory field and I want to process as soon as my mandatory fields are available and whatever is available in the optional field. So that can be done using mean operator and mean attribute and AND operator. In this particular example, what does it mean is that A should have all data set, A data set should have all instance, B is 0, means whatever is available B is okay, but A should be available. So Oozie will start processing as soon as A is available, whatever available in B. So if you are working with a multiple provider, you can set priority among the providers. For input logic, your ordering is a precedence. In this particular case, A has more precedence over B and C, and B has more precedence over C. We saw the BCP example. Sometimes doing BCP processing is not desirable, as it might consume your resources and time, because you might have to do a cross-column copy. So you can use wait with data set, and what does it mean is that wait for A for 120 minutes. It will switch to B only after 120 minutes, and A is not available. So yeah, in other way it means that move to B only if A is not available after 120 minutes. Again, so if you're working with a multiple provider, you might have a case that one provider has some instance, other provider has some. So you want to combine them. In this particular, so you can use a combine operator. In this particular case, you're combining A and B. So again, the precedence comes. A has more precedence over B. So whatever is not available in A will be looked in B. In similar way, we can have C, D, E, F. So currently, Oozie doesn't have a unit test case framework. This is really problematic for user. What they have to do is that they have to deploy their workflow bundle coordinators or whatever to the staging server, and then they have to test it there. It takes time. And so we're working to provide a mini Oozie where mini Oozie internally creates a mini MR, mini HDFS, and it support everything actually. It support HK, Peak, Hive, Spark, and then it has an interface called mini Oozie client, which can be used to communicate mini Oozie server. If you are really working in a rapid environment, sometimes you can definitely write JUnit using mini Oozie and writing test cases and validate your workflow. But that's not always expected. If you're doing a rapid development, you want a better way to represent your test case so that you can easily represent it, modify and run it. So working on a framework where you can represent your test cases in a YAML format, and there will be Maven plugin. So what you need to do is that you need to just say Maven test, and then the plugin will figure it out. If your project has a YAML file, it will convert the YAML into unit test cases, run it, and you produce the report. Just to give an example how a simple test cases can be represented in YAML. So take an example, name. So it says the name of the test case, test coordinator. And you can define properties, what has to go for the job. And then you can do some of the HDFS operations, like in this particular case, we have used touch, we have used make directory, you can use copy local files to SFS, and you can use all those. You can use HK operations like draw parties and create parties, and if you are testing the workflow or a coordinator with HK. There are two ways of doing validation. One is job validation, where you can check the status of a job and some of the attributes. Other is you can validate the output, which is not shown here. Other thing which is not shown here, we can also do is that suppose you want to test a workflow, but your purpose is to check the completeness of workflow, not a pig script. So you can stub out pig. So you can say skip pig, and it will skip all the pig. If you're testing a coordinator, you don't want to execute a workflow, you can say skip workflow. So it will only check the coordinator, not the workflow. This is still in development, and then we are planning to push it by end of this quarter. So next I'll hand over to Satish. He'll talk about the Spark and some of the future work.
Hi. For Spark Action list, let's give you some brief introduction about Spark Action. We introduced Spark Action last year in Oozie. So Spark Action is out of the box support when you install Oozie. And just to clarify, whenever I'm mentioning we, I'm mentioning the whole Oozie community and not just the team at Oozie team which works at Yahoo. So just look at example how for a user how a Spark action looks like. So for user, it's pretty simple. User just need to specify an XML file with we have given XML tags for the user so that user can mention the mode in which user wants to run the Spark job. Also the class and the jar file in which the Spark job actually resides. If your user wants to distribute files and archives on his job, so there are tags for distributing files and archives as well. Through Spark Action, user can also run PySpark jobs, which is just a Python script for Spark jobs. Recently, we have made users life easy to run these kind of jobs. by setting this PySpark zip and Py4j zip files automatically. Basically, Oozie will be setting up some environment variables for the user, and user don't need to worry about internal details of environment, setting up the environment. We support all of the modes which you can have while running a Spark job. So that's local, YARN client, and YARN cluster. Here, one interesting thing is that when user is running his or her Spark job in the local mode and YARN client mode, the driver code in the Spark, it actually runs inside the Oozie launcher process. So if a user wants to increase the memory of that driver job or pass in some Java options, then user need to prefix those properties with Oozie launcher, so that Oozie will apply those properties to the Oozie launcher itself, and that will get applied to the driver. To sum up some of the recent enhancement, so like I said, for the PySpark job we did some enhancement. Also from Oozie UI, if a user can directly jump onto the Spark History Server UI, so that it will directly refer to the child job. Also user can mention different kind of Spark options. So rather than each user having his or her own Spark options defined every time, they can just combine some default option and give it to the Oozie server, so that Oozie server, whenever there is a Spark action, Oozie server will pick those default configuration file and apply it to the Spark job. Through file and archive tag, you can mention the files which you want to distribute, which you want to distribute on your Spark application. There is also one enhancement we did is earlier there was a extra copy happening of all of the jars while launching a Spark job from Oozie launcher, because we were giving them the local paths of the jars. So that can be avoided by giving the HDFS paths to the Spark, so that Spark will directly refer to the HDFS path and it won't make a separate copy of jars from localized path to the HDFS again. So that reduced startup time of Spark jobs significantly. And there were like a couple of bug fixes, like parsing the XML and parsing the Spark options. So in the future, we will be working on the unit test framework that Purva has just said, that currently your user face the issue where first they need to try it out on some local machine or some staging cluster, and then when they figure out everything, then they will actually deploy it on the production cluster. So unit testing framework will solve that issue. We are planning to work on the coordinator better dependency management. In that, so currently what happens is user has multiple coordinators running. So one of the coordinators output is input for one of the other coordinators. So, but there is no actually coupling between those two coordinators. Those user has to manage those two on his own. So Oozie community will take a look at that, and will try to improve the dependency between two coordinators. And we are also planning to add the periodic processing. So currently, if you remember the earlier example, Oozie can spawn up the jobs based on the time frequency, like every 5 minutes, every 5 hours, like that. So in our periodic processing, there will be processing, like if if data comes to the directory before the time, then before the time Oozie will launch the job, it won't wait for the defined frequency. So that's the future value. Thank you.
Thank you, Puru and Satish. So, if you have any questions,
hello. This is from a feature enhancement perspective. The question is there any plan to incorporate some of the ETMN workflow engine capabilities such as JBoss or workflow ETMN engine? So those are, is there any capable plan to incorporate some specific or some small subset of those capabilities?
No, we haven't looked into that. But yeah, you can propose that. You can create a Jira and then put your details and then see what is currently missing and what you want to edit. Definitely we can look into that.
Yeah, so that way the Oozie can be tied into business, right now job, right? You can be tied to business outcomes and business processing capabilities as well.
Yeah, right. So we haven't at least at Yahoo, we never had a requirement like that. But yeah, you can always create a Jira and then like Hortonworks work on that, Cloudera works on that, we works on that, in-movie folks also. Like, I'm not sure if anybody has a requirement. So definitely you can put a Jira and the details and then somebody can look at it.
Thank you.
So we have another question from this side. So in the scenarios where multiple Spark versions available on the same cluster, how can users specify a particular PySpark.zip file to be picked by Oozie so that it's available in shared lib automatically?
So you can have multiple share libs defined for each of the Spark version, and while launching the job, you can specify the specific share lib version there. Like for the Spark action, you can just mention the specific version, and Oozie will pick up those jobs or those zip files.
Thanks.
okay. So I think we don't have any more questions. Thank you, Puru and Satish, for the nice presentation.